A very good evening to everyone present here, and a very good morning to the delegates from UIC. To begin with, allow me to welcome you all, the participants and the delegates, to this international webinar hosted by the Department of Orthodontics and Dentofacial Orthopedics at the Faculty of Dental Sciences, Lamia University of Applied Sciences, which is in collaboration with the Department of Orthodontics of the College of Dentistry, University of Illinois, Chicago. I, Dr. Shadanya Sabdish, an associate professor in the orthodontics department, on behalf of my department, would like to begin this webinar by welcoming our patrons and our esteemed dignitaries who have joined us today. I would like to welcome our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Kuldeep Raina, and our Pro-Vice Chancellor, Dr. Om Prakash Kharbanda, sir, and our Dean, Dr. Silju Matthew, and the head of our department, Dr. Prashant, sir, to this webinar. It also gives me immense pleasure to welcome our international guests for today. We have among us Dr. Sath Allareddy, who is the professor and head of the Department of Orthodontics at UIC, Dr. Min Lee, Dr. Maysaa, Dr. Shankar Venugopalan, and Dr. Sumit Yadav. I wish you all a very good morning back there in the US, and we look forward to a very fruitful learning experience today. I also would like to welcome the staff of our faculty, all the postgraduates and undergraduate students of the various colleges in Bangalore and the entire India who have logged in to attend this webinar. At the Ramia University, we believe that education, industry, and society are all deeply interlinked, and each can and should mold each other. This is the driving idea behind the design of all our programs and courses, and our curriculum reflects a changing society. It is rooted firmly in the present and faces the future. So it focuses on what is and the immense possibilities of what can be. Because at RUAS, we don't just create competent graduates, we try to create thinkers, makers, and doers of a better world. Keeping this in mind, the topic of today's webinar is one of great importance to undergraduates and postgraduates alike. Cracking the code for pursuing a career in dentistry in the United States. And who better than to shed light on this topic than other dentists who have successfully are pursuing a career in esteemed institutions in the US. We are very grateful that we have the cooperation from Dr. Allareddy and his team of orthodontists who have agreed to present their experiences and personal thoughts on this topic. Before I begin, I'd like to first invite the Dean of Faculty of Dental Sciences, Dr. Silju Matthew, to welcome the gathering and address all the delegates.
Thank you, Dr. Sharanya. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Thank you. A warm greetings and welcome to one and all on a cool winter evening in India and a cold morning at US, and to our friends joining from across the globe. First of all, I welcome Honorable Vice Chancellor of RUAS, a scholar par excellence with exemplary research credentials, a visionary and a great leader, and a role model for all of us. Professor Kuldeep Raina, sir, I welcome you to the webinar. Next, I would like to welcome an accomplished researcher, renowned academician, author, and globally recognized teacher, Pro-Vice Chancellor of Health Sciences, Professor O.P. Kharbanda, sir. A warm welcome to you too, sir. I also want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the role of Professor Belur Prabhakara, who had played a pivotal role in connecting the RUS and UIC together, and he's been instrumental in bringing these two great universities together. One of the most humble and down-to-earth person I ever met, a man who is a success story in US because of his sheer hard work and dedication. I welcome Professor Sath Allareddy, who is the Chair, Department of Orthodontics at UIC. I really appreciate your support in organizing this webinar. I mean, you have been so forthcoming, and you have really helped us to connect, and we are so thankful to you for organizing this series of webinars spread across the year. I also welcome other distinguished speakers, Dr. Sumit Yadav from the University of Connecticut, a great achiever, someone who's not new to the Indian audience. He has been lecturing through webinars at various forums, and we are all such proud of him. I welcome you to this webinar. I also welcome the UIC team, Dr. Min Kyeong Lee and Dr. Maysaa from UIC, and also Dr. Shankar Rangasamy from Iowa University. A warm welcome to each one of you. Finally, I welcome all the colleagues at FTS, students who have joined from various colleges from Bangalore as well as from across the country and few from overseas, and all the attendees from across wherever you are for this webinar. And I'm sure it will be a great learning experience listening to these celebrities as they share their personal experience of making it big in the US and will inspire many to follow them. Thank you all and have an enriching experience. Over to you, Dr. Shankar.
Thank you, sir. Can I now request our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Raina, sir, to kindly say a few words to our esteemed delegates?
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Am
Loud
I
and clear.
audible? Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Sharanya, and all my distinguished friends and colleagues who are across us. What Dr. Selju said, it is cold, cold evening in Bangalore and cool morning in Illinois. I think that brings us the cold and cold together. Two negatives make it positive, so we are with positive energy on this platform to share our thought process. I am very grateful to our friends in the US for coming forth and being a part of this discussion and deliberations. And to my colleagues in the Faculty of Dental Sciences, I see a great number. I think this number is increasing. So we will have certainly a great time to think about, work together, because the theme that is chosen is cracking the code. I think cracking the code is really something which is going to take us miles apart, exploring the possibilities that how at Rama University of Applied Sciences and our contemporaries in United States are going to bridge the gap between the knowledge that we impart to the students in India and how its impact is going to be there seen visibly in the United States and other countries. My colleagues, my friends from US, when I see them, I see there is all Indianness in each one of them. That is a kind of a straw that these people have put in this wonderful bridge that yes, there is a scope, there is a possibility. I think on this platform, I see many of us have got certain exposures from different countries globally. And today when we say in the Indian system that Vasudeva Kutumbakam, and each one of us are working for the same cause, and we are one people, we live in a global village. And in that context, I'm sure for professionals, whether it is in the dentistry, information technology, or whether it is in allied services and allied health sciences, there is going to be a great scope of learning, and cracking the code in dental is going to make it surely apt and different. I'm confident that in due course of time, I see in 2023 that this collaboration will further strengthen our resolve to work together as teams and provide the pathways for the future generations to explore what best can be done together. Despite miles apart, we learned from COVID situations that the blended system of learning is also very, very impactful, and it helps us to gain the knowledge. I do believe that these kinds of discussion deliberations should not be confined to a day. We can prepare the calendar of events so that more and more students from Ramaya University and other institutions across the country will get benefited by this thought process. Knowledge is seamless, and in that, if there is going to be more and more experiential learning from our peers at different platforms in different countries, I think that is what we are going to harness. Yesterday, the whole nation celebrated Makar Sankranti, and today we have seen that how there was a radiance of the sun. I'm sure this energy itself speaks that we are there with each one of you and our students who are the most important stakeholders in our growth process as a university, as an ecosystem in education, will get largely benefited by these efforts. I thank our guests for sparing their valuable time. Holiday in US, which is really a unique thing sometimes other than Saturday and Sunday. So I'm sure that you found your time with us. and it is going to be a great enriching experience for each one. With these words, I once again thank you all and thank Dr. Silju and our Pro Vice Chancellor Health Sciences, Professor Kharbanda, for taking the initiative at the FDS level, at the ROAS level, to make this possible. My best wishes for its great success. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Raina, sir, for your kind words. We also have the honor of having a very experienced and distinguished orthodontist of India, who is now the Pro Vice Chancellor of our university. So I would like to request Dr. O.P. Kharbanda, sir, to address the gathering.
Uh, Thank you, Rana sir and Dr. Allareddy, Dr. Matthew, and all of you. I have a few points to make that if you are looking at cracking the code of success, and if you are an immigrant in US, there are a couple of qualities which, of course, Dr. Allareddy and other colleagues, Dr. Min and Dr. Maysaa will be sharing with you because they are coming from different cultures and different countries. But one thing which I can say that what you need is endurance. You should be able to to be weatherproof in all circumstances. That is one. And number two, that you should be flexible to adapt. So if you are flexible and you have endurance, perhaps you can survive. Because when you move to another country, which I have some experience, it's not easy. It's not easy. I can only say that we are all waiting to hear our esteemed speakers, and without taking much time, I will only say that I like to thank all of you, including my friend Dr. Sumit Yadav, whom I can see has suddenly, because I have not seen him since COVID. I saw him before COVID, and now I think I will like to meet him again. And I also invite other speakers to be able to also physically come to India, and we will keep the interactions on. But at the moment, I think what is important for us is that those students who are waiting to hear from the life experience of you all, I once again thank you for sparing your time. My best regards and good wishes.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words and all your support. Without further delay, let us now proceed with the webinar for today. In this 1 hour 30 minutes webinar, 5 faculty members who are immigrants to the United States will discuss their experiences and the pathway to an academic career in the United States. Each speaker will take approximately 10 minutes to present their story. And after all the 5 speakers have completed their talk, there will be a question and answer session between the audience and the speakers. All questions must kindly be shared in the chat box only. And also please mention which speaker you are addressing so that we can direct your queries to them. Without further ado, I would like to request the first speaker of the day, Dr. Sath Allareddy, sir, to kickstart today's talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shankar, and thank you so much for the organizing committee for giving us an opportunity to share our stories, experiences, and actually to sort of self-reflect, and hopefully for all the dental students and residents who are interested in pursuing a career in the US to know something from each of our journeys. So we won't have any PowerPoint presentations today. It will be more like a face-to-face kind of interaction through Zoom, and we will get started off now. So first, I'm going to actually request Dr. Sumit Yadav to share his story, and after Dr. Yadav, Dr. Shankar will share his story, followed by Dr. Maysaa and then Dr. Lee, and then finally myself. Dr. Sumit, it's all over to you now.
Yeah, thank you, Sath, and I will be quick. I think so. Some of the people I know them very well, as Dr. Silju Matthew, Dr. O.P. Kharbanda said. We have been interacting over the last few years, and I'll start. It would be quick. I did my bachelor's in dentistry from Manipal College of Dental Sciences, Mangalore, and then I did my orthodontics from Kyeong Institute of Dental Sciences in Belgaum. and where I and my colleague Dr. Upadhyay, we started publishing because we had a knack that we wanted to go abroad and specifically to US. So we started publishing some case reports, some research, some clinical tips in different orthodontic journals. And in 2006, when I was graduating, I only applied to one university, which was IUPUI, Indiana University, and I wanted to do a doctorate degree or a PhD under Gene Roberts. And I would say it was a little bit foolishness because I should have applied in 10 to 15 different universities. But somehow luck played with me, and Dr. Gene Roberts got NIH funded grant, and I was accepted into the program. And that's where all the things begin to fall down or fall upon, because I went to a prominent place from where I did my PhD in bone physiology, and from there in 3 years or 2 years 9 months, actually it's a record in IUPUI that I finished my PhD in the fastest amount of time. But it was a lot of long working hours. Instead of working 6 hours, I was working from morning 5 to 11 in the night just to finish up my projects. And the grant was also finishing, so I was trying to match up my PhD project with the grant. So that's how all the things were working. And as I was completing my PhD, Dr. Roberts recommended me to go to 3 or 4 universities for orthodontic degree, and one of them was Connecticut. And I came to Connecticut, I interviewed in Connecticut, and I got matched in Connecticut. And again, I will say a luck played again in my favor. One of the faculty there, Dr. Vadva, who is my mentor and my role model, and he left to Columbia University as a chair. So the dean of the dental school and Dr. Nanda, they both called me and they said, hey, we need a person to teach. We need a person to supervise the residents' research. And my major question was, what about my orthodontic certificate? And they said, that you will get it. So since 2010, I have been full-time faculty. And first 3 years, I was doing sort of a residency and being a faculty. But after that, I've been a full-time faculty, and very recently, I was promoted to full professor. And some of you folks know, especially all the US folks, starting March 1st, I would join as an endowed professor and chair for the Department of Orthodontics, Periodontics, and public general practice residency at University of Nebraska Health Center. So, this is my very brief story, but my drive to come to US was basically, do a little bit more research, try to understand certain phenomenon more. And that's where, my whole life story began. And that's where, as our field is basically much more clinical. But what I differentiated from other people was my research. And that's how whether be it clinical, be it basic science, be it translational, getting patents, or getting NIH funded, that was my big differentiation from all the other people who came to US or who are doing pretty well in private practice now. But that's how I differentiated myself and moved on. And the rest of all is history. And I would say these are the steps which you will see. You will excel in one field and you will do good in other field. So I did excel in research and I'm doing pretty decent in other fields. And that's how you will choose your own battles and which battle you want to win, which battle you want to lose. And I chose my own battles, and here I am. Thank you for listening. And after this, I think the Dr. Shankar will go, and in the end, I will take all the questions, or as a we all will take all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yadav. Good morning, everybody. And I want to thank the organizers for this opportunity to share our journey. I am Shankar Venugopalan. I'm a faculty in the Department of Orthodontics at the University of Iowa College of Dentistry. So what I wanted to share with you guys today is my journey from India as a dental student to becoming an orthodontist, to becoming the chair of the department starting March 1st at Tufts University School of Dental Medicine. So when I finished dental school, I was working as an adjunct dentist with one of my professors. I had a great experience. I was clinically well trained at that point. It was a moment of self-reflection in the context that what do I want to do? I come from a very humble beginning. My father was working for the state government. Financially, we were doing okay to meet the needs of the family. But in order to set any aspirational goals, it was way beyond our reach. So at that point, I had met one of my seniors, and that was one of the presenters here in this session today, that is Dr. Allareddy. He had just finished BDS and had gone to do a PhD in the US. I happened to meet him and discuss the career opportunity. And with his guidance, I applied for PhD programs in the US. And here the key message is sometimes you have to identify your own mentors, and you have to take a leap of faith and be proactive. So that led me to applying to a number of universities in the US, and I got accepted into the PhD program in Texas A&M Baylor College of Dentistry, Dallas, Texas. Now it's called as Texas A&M University College of Dentistry. So as a doctoral students, you go through different rotations in the different labs. I had gone through 3-4 rotations, and I hadn't finalized a department yet. So at that time, my PhD mentor had come to give a presentation to the Baylor College of Dentistry folks on craniofacial morphogenesis. And as a rotating graduate student, I was listening to his presentation, and I was immediately hooked. And that was a eureka moment for me that this is exactly what I wanted to do. So up until that point, I was sort of wandering around trying to figure out, I have come to do a PhD, but I wasn't quite clear what direction exactly should I be going. And sometimes it's okay, you don't have to push yourself to do something under pressure. It's okay to wait and discover what is that you're really passionate about. And that's what happened in that lecture on that day. So I approached him. It turned out that he was located in completely a different campus. I was located in a different campus, and that required Herculean administrative task of moving students around, me being an immigration student with an F1 visa. So I approached my department chair, and she was kindly allowed me to go from Dallas to Houston, which is about 4 or 5 hours of drive, to do a 3-month rotation, which means I have to sacrifice my, the housing where I was living, pack my things and put it into storage, and I have to take a leap of faith and relocate to a different city where I know nobody other than this professor. So I rotated in his lab, and I decided to continue my doctoral thesis. When my PhD was coming to a close, I had a meeting with my mentor again. And at that point, one of the advice that he gave me was, when I had come to the US, my goal was to be a pure researcher, apply for funding, have my own lab, have research focused on genetics of craniofacial development. And what he had advised me at that point was, Shankar, your biggest strength is your clinical training. And if you combine your clinical training and your research, you can do a lot more as supposed to be a pure researcher. Being a clinician scientist, you can bring the problems in the clinical arena and solve it in your basic science lab and go back to help the patient. So that motivated me to apply for a residency program. And naturally, my PhD was in craniofacial biology. And the specialties that were very close to craniofacial biology was orthodontics. Up until that point, I believe Dr. Allareddy was the only person who was successful in getting into a orthodontic residency program in the US. And the general thought was getting into an ortho residency is extremely challenging for domestic students. It's even more challenging for international students. So with my PhD, I had applied to a number of different universities. I got a few interviews. And the main reason I was able to get an interview into an orthodontic residency program was in my personal statement. I had conveyed this message. I envision a career where I want to be a clinician scientist bridging the clinical side of things with research side of craniofacial biology. So I was interviewed at Harvard, and that place felt like home immediately. And my entire orthodontic residency training was like a mini faculty job where I had to treat patients, teach dental students, and also my research was focused on enamel mineralization. So I had identified a mentor at that point, and he was the associate dean for dental education, and his name is Dr. Kyeong. And he guided me into how I should prepare myself for the next stage, which is to become an academic, a full-time faculty. So I took my first faculty position at UMKC School of Dentistry. And at that moment, I had an opportunity to do a this is something not known to many of you, which is called as a faculty track DDS. So you can work as a faculty and you can do your DDS at the same time. So I was able to complete that. So by that time, I had finished my PhD in craniofacial biology, my residency training in orthodontics, I've completed a postdoc, and I had my DDS, and that gave me license to practice pretty much in the United States. And from UMKC, I came to U Iowa as an associate professor, and starting March 1st, I will be starting as a chair of orthodontics department at Tufts University School of Dental Medicine. And here the key message is you have to identify your mentors. So my first mentor was Dr. Allareddy, who helped me to get into the PhD program in the US. When I was in my PhD training, my mentor helped me to shape my long-term goal. And the associate dean for dental education, Dean Kyeong, who was at Harvard at that time, is the dean for the School of Dental Medicine at Tufts. And then it came to a full circle where I will be working with them starting March 1st. So in my journey, the key messages that I wanted to convey are: one, identify your mentor; two, be proactive. And sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. And when situation is blurry, take your time and find your goal and take help from people. Thank you.
Thank you, Shankar. Maysaa, do you want to go over your story?
Yes, absolutely. Do you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you, Maysaa.
Okay, hello everyone. So I'm gonna start telling you a little bit about myself. I finished my dental school back home in Syria. And after that, I did ortho residency for two years, but never had the chance to practice general dentistry because I went to residency right away. I did my ortho residency 2 years, and then I came right after graduation here to US. I joined my husband. So also I didn't have a chance to practice general dentistry or orthodontic specialty. So I came here, I joined my husband. He was doing his residency here, and we went to a kind of like rural area. I'm giving you these details just to let you know for whoever need to pause, have some time to continue your goal, it's okay. So I had to join my husband in a rural area where there is no dental school in the area. The closest dental school was 4 hours away from my home. So after finishing my residency, never practiced, but I had to do something, and there is no dental school around me. So I paused a little bit I had the kids, and I was preparing for my exams. So that's all I was able to do. So it took me a couple of years. So it's okay to wait a little bit if the environment around you not letting you to go right away. So it's okay, take your time. That's what I did. I prepared for my exam until we were able to move to Chicago, where I had where UIC was close enough to my home to start looking and adding to my CV. So I would say the first month I moved to Chicago, I was contacting every single, I would say, email I found in the website and asking every friend or whoever has a connection to UIC to find something else, something to help me add to my CV, because, you know, requirement never enough on the paper, like doing exams, doing all these requirements, you have to do something extra to show your interest and you're working hard. So exams scores are good, but it's not enough. That's the first thing I would like to tell everyone. You have to do something extra. So I contacted every single person. I would say I started emailing, calling people. I ended up calling the same person, emailing the same person twice. But it's okay. I ended up actually having a volunteering opportunity in a lab in UIC, and it just happened to be an ortho lab. So this lab belongs to ortho department. So I worked for this lab for a couple months, and then I applied to ortho residency. I didn't do advanced standing program. Because I thought I already am kind of orthodontist. I have 2 years of ortho residency back home in Syria, and I wanted to continue with that. But I applied after a couple of months, but I didn't even get an interview. So my second thing I would like to tell everyone, so it's okay to feel you're not competent enough. It's okay to feel you're not appealing enough. All you need to do, just keep going. That's fine. You don't need to be the smartest, just you need to keep going. So I spent 1 more year with ortho research, working with the resident, helping everyone. I just showed hard work and how persistent I was, consistent. Just pause every once in a while, reflect, see what wrong has happened, and connect the points. So that's exactly what I did. And then after a year and a half, I would say, of research, I applied again. And at that time, I got the interview at ortho residency. I got in, I was accepted. I finished my residency at UIC. And then I joined the school right after my graduation. I became a part-time faculty. And then, when you have a dream and you have a good mentor like Dr. Allareddy, I was able to be a full-time faculty, and then also with all his support, I became associate director in the department. And again, all you need, as Dr. Shankar said, you need a good mentor. Find a good mentor and just be consistent. It's okay again to fail, and it's okay to fail again. Don't worry, just keep going. And I'm talking to you now as Associate Director at UIC Orthodontic Department, and I would like to take any question you guys have.
Thank you, Maysaa. No problem. Irene, do you want to go over your story?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Irene.
Okay, great. Hello, my name is Min-Kyung Lee. I was born and raised in South Korea initially. I think my story is a little different from maybe the rest of the panelists because I came to the States as a minor, so I can give you a perspective as a minor who followed my dad, who was actually who came to the United States as a student to do implant dentistry fellowship. So again, my dad was trained as an endodontist, but he was interested in getting a formal education. So he went to NYU for his fellowship and took the rest of the family with him for 3 years of his studies. At that time, I was 11 and my brother was 12, and I learned a little bit of English, but I was not at all fluent. So I remember going to school, and it was very difficult. Learning a new language in a new place and a new culture. So my dad would come back from school, his own school, and sit down with me with all my homework, with all the courses that I took. And I had to literally translate every single word that was on the textbook. So that was our 3 years as a family together on the East Coast. And at the end of my dad's 3-year studies, our original plan was to go back together back to South Korea, where my dad would practice. But we soon realized that my brother and I had 3 years of gap in our Korean studies, and our chance of getting into college is pretty low because as in India, it's very competitive to get into a good school. So we changed our plan and we started looking for high schools and boarding schools within the United States for my brother and I to continue our studies in the United States. Just as a side, because we accompanied my dad, he was on an F1 visa, and as a family member, we all had F2. And with F2 visas, we were able to attend public schools. But as we are going to be left on our own, we were switching to from F2 to F1, and as an F1 holder, you have to pay tuition. So from then on, my brother and I were left behind. My brother in Hawaii and I was on outside Boston, attending a boarding school for 4 years. And then I went on to college for another 4 years, and I was able to enter dental school at Harvard School of Dental Medicine, which is another 4 years to obtain a DMD or DDS in the United States. And that's where I met Dr. Allareddy as an undergrad dental student. He was a resident in orthodontics at that time. And I became interested in orthodontics for several reasons. But thankfully, I was accepted into the program at the same school, at Harvard School of Dental Medicine. And at that point, I had been an international student myself for 12 years. And that was I'm very thankful for my family for supporting me all that time. And as some of you might know, the tuition at a private institution is very high. And my really only chance to getting into an ortho program was some kind of scholarship. And at Harvard, they had presidential scholarship for students who were pursuing a DMSC program from graduates from Harvard who were continuing on to get a DMSC. And very thankfully, I was able to, I was a recipient of the scholarship, and I was able to continue at Harvard for another 4 years, getting my orthodontic residency training, as well as a DMSC in neurobiology. And afterwards, I really wanted to do something where I could really give back to the community or really use my skills in an area where it's needed. So I continued on my training and apply for a fellowship in craniofacial subspecialty. And I moved then to Los Angeles, where I did my fellowship training and stayed in Los Angeles for another 7 years, and came back and then came to Chicago area, where I joined Dr. Allareddy as a part-time faculty, where I am now. I think my story might be more interesting for those of you who may have children or have family and are thinking about relocating to the United States. And if you have any questions, I will take the questions at the end of our panel. discussion.
Thank you, Irene. I think the last story would be from me. So mine is sort of a very unconventional, visceral kind of story because it is more about survival than having any clear-cut goals. And I made so many different wrong steps in my life, but they just happen to be in the right direction. So I'll go my story now. Let's start off with my story now. So when I was very young, like probably in my 4th, 5th standard back in India, since then I wanted to be a teacher, but I was not very clear, obviously, about in what area that I would want to teach. But I really wanted to be a teacher. That's because I think I had probably very good role models in my primary or my middle school. So that sort of stayed in the back of my mind that I would always want to be a teacher. And of course, as you're going through teenage years, right, and then you grow up in a culture of films and cricket, you think you should become a cricketer or you should get into the movie business. And I had gone through that transition too because my family was in the movie business. And then by the end of high school, I realized how terrible of a cricketer I was and how risky of a business is movie business. So those went in the background. So I was sort of a late bloomer in terms of being a good student. So I was a very, very mediocre student growing up. And my mom was worried that probably I would not get through 10th standard. In fact, I remember like my neighbor, that aunt, she accidentally bounced into me and my mom, like in a shopping center, like buying some clothes. And then that's when the 10th standard results had come out. And then she asked my mom if I passed. And then my mom said, yeah, he got first class. She was shocked actually. She dropped her bags because she was thinking that I would actually fail. So that was my remembrance about how bad a student I was. And then I did my high school, and then I started to slowly get serious about what I wanted to do. And I wanted to be a medical doctor. And then, like as you all know, right, we take the entrance exam, and then you apply for the medical colleges. So what happened for me was like I got the admission letter to medical school one day late. So I lost my medical school spot. So I ended up in dentistry. So it was like sort of a default. So I was always grieved that something was taken away from me. The 4 years I spent in dental school, 5 years including the internship, I didn't particularly like dentistry because there was this backstory that something was taken away from me. But I got through dental school being probably an average or above average student. And then as soon as dental school got over, internship got over, I wanted to sort of explore. I was not very clear about what I wanted to do, but what I was very clear was, so I have to go out of India to just get that experience of living in a foreign country and then seeing what it is. But I was totally unprepared on what I would actually face when I come to the US, right? So I moved to the US on July 26, 2000, and I came for an MBA program. The reason I came for an MBA program was again to sort of stay away from dentistry and then just explore a new kind of a course or whatever it is. And then I was thinking that if I do an MBA program, then I'll definitely get a job in the US, and I would have been very happy if I should have got like, I don't know, $40,000-$50,000 salary back in 2002, and I would have just settled off in my life. That was the narrative that I had spun for myself to suit my convenience, right? And then starting off in the MBA program, totally different to dentistry, obviously, in a new country, new culture. It was very difficult. So I took 1 year to just have a hang of what was actually going on in the program. But by the end of my first year, my GPA was so low that I was actually on academic probation. Now, if you're an international student, if you're on academic probation, right, you really cannot travel outside the country. You cannot take educational loans. You really have to get out of academic probation, first of all. So out of the 60 MBA students in the class of 2002, like I was the only one that actually didn't have a summer internship, which means it became very clear to me that by end of my MBA program, and I was supposed to graduate in May 2002, I will not have a job. So if you don't get a summer internship, if you don't do a summer internship in your MBA, the chances of you getting a job is pretty bleak actually. So that is when the reality hit me about, okay, how much money I've actually spent so far, and then the reality of actually having to go back to India with a huge amount of money spent and without a job. And then it became a question of survival for me. Then I thought, okay, I cannot be like this. I have to do something different. So when I was in the MBA program, I joined in the joint MHA program for the simple reason that they were giving research assistantships. And towards the end of 2002, I had like $1,000 left with me, which was sufficient to get a one-way ticket to India or apply to the MHA program and then see what my chances are of getting financial aid. I applied and then I told my program director, Dr. Barry Green, that if given a chance, I would do really well, but I need to have support, financial support, which means I need to get an assistantship. If I don't get an assistantship, then I have to go back to India. And I didn't have any experience whatsoever, but I just swallowed my ego and then just begged him for an assistantship. So he was kind enough to give me a research assistantship, and that was my first introduction to research, and it was more on qualitative kind of research. It's about chiro practitioners and their attitudes about health and reference. But the point is, like, with that assistantship, it gave me about like $750 per month in funding for my living expenditure, and then they waived the tuition fees. So I just had to pay state fees, which was like very low, which I borrowed from my parents then. So I was in the MHA program. 1 year into the MHA program, I met my mentor, Dr. Badrinath Konati, who's a uro-oncologist. He's right now in Minnesota. He's the chair and one of the associate deans for technology and innovation. And coincidentally, Dr. Badrinath is a graduate of MS Ramaiah Medical School. So that's why I have this link with MS Ramaiah Medical School, and I have a soft corner for the institute because he's an excellent mentor. And he introduced me to the concept of big data analytics. This was back in 2002, 2003. And I joined his lab again, not because I was interested in big data analytics, because for me to survive, that's why it was as simple as that. If I had joined his lab, then I would get like $1,000 more stipend. So my math was, if I get $1,000 with Dr. Badrinath, then $750 with Dr. Barry Green, that's $1,750. I can live off comfortably. So I did my MHA. Then since I wanted to stay in the US for some more time, right? And then I wanted to really sort of acquire a little bit more research skills. I did my PhD. And PhD was in health services research, and Dr. Badrinath and Marcia Ward were my mentors. And as I said earlier, Dr. Badrinath was a urologist, and he was also doing this big data kind of research. So I thought that, that appears really neat. So probably I could also go back to some healthcare kind of clinical training. And then I started to reflect what was in dental school that really appealed to me. As I said, I was not the best of dental students. I was sort of average, above average guy. Thankfully, orthodontics is one subject that I didn't have much exposure. So it was very easy for me. Then I'll do orthodontics because every other subject, right, I was not keen on doing, and I had completely got burnt out. And I had published like 10, 15 papers by then, and I thought that getting into orthodontics would not be that difficult. I was not as realistic as Shankar, Maysaa were there. So I didn't do my homework there. So I thought, it's just going to be easy for me. I'm going to apply. And then again, end of my PhD, I had like a couple of $1,000, which means I could apply to about 10 programs in the US. And I applied to 10 programs. And I didn't get an interview anywhere excepting one program. That was Harvard. And thankfully, I got matched into Harvard actually. And then I did my residency. The end of, again, like my family was supporting me through this journey, and of course I had scholarships when I was an MHA and PhD student. But end of first year in my residency, again, like I didn't have any money left actually. And then if I had wanted to pursue an academic career in the US, which means I have to complete my orthodontic residency training, and without finances, right, I cannot really complete the training. So again, like I was thinking, okay, what's going to be the next step for me? Should I just quit the program, or what's going to happen? So thankfully for me, I got a presidential scholarship at Harvard. Both Irene and Shankar have also been recipients of presidential scholarship. So the presidential scholarship, I got a full tuition fee waiver. And Dr. Karim Bucks, who was the assistant dean for dental education then, and right now he's the dean at School of Dental Medicine at Tufts. So he was my mentor then. He really took me under his wings, and he created so many opportunities for me when I was actually a second, third year resident. He made me a tutor, he made me a course co-director, which means I got that academic experience as well as I was getting some financial support from Harvard to pursue and to be able to just live off with that money in Boston. So I finished my so I was so close to finishing my residency. This was back in May 2010. Um, being on an F1 visa and graduating from the residency program, not yet board certified, it was sort of a challenge to get faculty jobs then. And again, I had totally underestimated the difficulty in getting a faculty job. I had contacted pretty much every department chair in the country for a faculty position, and nobody actually opened the doors for me for a variety of reasons. And then at that point of time, right, I had come to India and I had contracted malaria, and without knowing, I had come back to Boston. That was just 3 months before I was going to graduate. So the implication of malaria was that I got black water fever, and if you actually look in literature, the mortality rate for black water fever is probably 90%. I had multi-organ failure. I was hospitalized. I was on life support for good 2 months, which means I didn't actually have time to look for jobs or interview at various places. So I was discharged from the hospital in like around, I think, March 15th of 2010. And I was to graduate on May 29th of 2010. So in 2 months time, there was no way I was going to find like an academic job. Now the question here is like, okay, I finished my education now, but for me to survive, right? Because I had multi-organ failure, I had to have long-term follow-up in a hospital sitting in the US. And there is no way you can actually afford healthcare in the US without health insurance. So if you don't have health insurance, right, obviously the out of pocket that you pay is just ridiculously high. Just to put things in perspective. So following discharge from the hospital, I used to get those bills on how much I owe to the hospital. So my cost of care came to over $1 million. Okay, but since I had health insurance as a resident at Harvard, right, my actual out of pocket was $20 to $20 for 2 outpatient follow-up visits. But again, so that is the difference between having health insurance and not having health insurance. So I had to have health insurance, and health insurance in the US is employer based. So if you don't have a job, you don't have health insurance. So for me, again, it became a question of survival. So I have to survive, get follow-up care, be healthy, and then I can think about what I have to do. So again, like Harvard came to my rescue. They created a faculty position for me, and I worked there as faculty for a couple of years. And then I did the cleft craniofacial orthodontic training under Sustum and Richard Bowen. Again, they really took me under my wings, took very good care of me. They were excellent role models and mentors. And meanwhile, Dr. Karimbuks helped me at every stage in my career as a resident, as an early career faculty, as well as a craniofacial fellow. And after my craniofacial fellowship, I got an opportunity to go back to Iowa's faculty, and I joined University of Iowa's faculty in September of 2013. I got tenured in 2016. I was a full professor by 2017, and in 2018, I got a chance to come to UIC as a department chair. And I felt that probably my work would leave a bigger footprint if I moved to Chicago. And then I moved to Chicago, and it's now like my 5th year as head of department of orthodontics. So here the irony is like, so back in 2006 when I was applying for residencies, actually UIC was one of the places that I applied for a residency spot because Chicago was close to Iowa. It is much less expensive compared to the other schools. And Chicago would have been my first choice, but I never even got an interview for the residency program. But it just so serendipitously happened that I was not good enough to be a resident at Chicago, but somehow I became good enough to become a head of department at UIC Orthodontics. And probably that is the best move for me. And like, I'm very happy at Chicago to have the opportunity to mentor faculty like Maysaa, Irene, develop very good friendships with folks like Shankar, Sumit, and all of them have actually helped in each stage of my career. So that's my brief story, and I think now we'll be happy to take any questions from the panel or from the attendees. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much to all the speakers for taking their time out. We have a few questions that have been presented. The first question question is addressed to Dr. Sumit. The question is, what do you, since your research, your interest mainly lied in a lot of research, what was the biggest challenge that you faced in your career in terms of following this pathway?
The research pathway is a little bit always uncertain because research pathway always leads you to tenure position, and getting a tenure in US, it's not easy. You need to have certain criterias met, and at least I know in UConn and some other places you need to have an NIH funded grant, and as people know, getting an NIH funded grant is challenging. It's challenging, and it's becoming every year it's becoming more challenging. So it's not like as I said, when I came to Connecticut, Dr. Nanda was obviously one of the best mentors. He never put me into complete research position. He said be so there's three different positions in UConn. So I was in the middle position, which is you can do some research, but you have to cover the clinics. And either I was not on the tenured position, and Dr. Nanda said it's tough to get tenure, and but he supported me. I would say no research package was given to me, but Dr. Nanda said whatever you need, we have it in the department, or text me, call me, and it would be ordered. So it's his support which let me get going on research with small grants like American Association of Orthodontic Foundation, and then I started hitting big, started getting some NIH grants, and that's where all the things changed, because once I started getting NIH grant, people become more demanding, and I did too. And I asked for a research package, and everything was given to me, and then I applied for tenure and got tenure. So the most challenging part is if you are just a researcher without an orthodontic degree or without any other residency, the survival is that you need to get an NIH grant. Otherwise, you will never get a tenure, and you would always be renewed every year, which is not a good feeling that you don't know whether you have a job next year or not. So that's a little bit challenging, and that was a little bit tough.
Thank you, Dr. Sumit. We have another question for Dr. Shankar. You spoke a lot about the research pathway, but could you please share some thoughts on a lot of students who are interested in the clinical side of things?
Clinical side of things. So clinical research, can you, is the question more focused on clinical training or clinical research?
Clinical training.
Okay, so with regards to clinical training, the one thing that students from foreign country, they have to keep in mind, let's say, for example, orthodontics, we're talking about ortho here, we get about 350 applications for 5 spots, right? So now, if you are one of the applicants in that 350 spots, you have to set yourself apart why a position should be offered to you compared to others. So the key here is aspiring to become a clinician is fantastic, but now what should you do to be one of the 5 finalists out of a pool of 350 candidates should be the way to think about that question. And now you can set yourself apart a number of different ways. One way is research. That is the pathway I chose to do and Dr. Yadav chose to do. Another way is, there are a lot of fellowship programs available. UConn has a fellowship. I believe UIC has a fellowship too. You can apply for an orthodontic fellowship, strengthen your application, and then go into pursuing a clinical training. So the key message here is the challenge is how do you set yourself apart in a pool of 350 applicants who are applying for a specialty training, and what are the things that you need to do And how do you identify your mentors who can help you, guide you in achieving your goal? So I would say that would be my thought process to that question.
Dr. Sharanya, are you there?
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. We have a couple of participants who are raising their hands. So can I allow them to speak, sir?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Dr. Sejal, Dr. Karan Jata, we have allowed you to, you can log in.
Good evening, Dr. Shankar. I'm Sejal. I'm currently studying in third year BDS undergrad, and I would love to know more about faculty tag DDS. You mentioned it about it, so it will be
Absolutely.
helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So the faculty track DDS is being created by several different institutions. One way of retaining faculty. You know, one of the biggest challenges in the US right now is recruiting and retaining high quality of faculty within different specialty. So University of Missouri, Kansas City School of Dentistry, where I started my academic career, there was an opportunity to do a faculty DDS, and in order to go through that pathway, there are certain pre-requirements, and this pre-requirement varies by different school. So in UMKC, you have to have completed some type of an advanced training in the US. It may be a specialty training, or it may be a advanced training in general dentistry. And two, you should have completed National Board Part 1 and 2. And if possible, if you have completed clinical boards, that's great. If not, at least you have to have an advanced training and completion of National Board Part 1 and 2. Then what you do is they'll enroll you in the 2-year faculty track DDS, where you would work with different department chairs in completing certain competencies. Like, for example, you work with the chair of the endodontics department, and they'll give you a list of things to do, and you have to demonstrate that you are competent in performing endodontic procedure. And similarly, you do the same thing for ortho, oral surgery. If you're already an orthodontist, you don't have to do the orthodontic component of it. Once you finish all the core competencies, then the institution will confer a DDS on you. And once you have the DDS, you can take regional clinical boards, pretty much any boards, and you will be able to get license in any part of the United States. And having said that, while you're doing faculty DDS, you're also expected to do your faculty responsibilities. Like, for example, if you are a clinical track faculty, you are expected to teach, you're expected to cover clinic, you're expected to do clinical research. If you're a tenure track faculty, you're still expected to do research, teach, and run your lab and things like that. So it's not like once you become a faculty, you can delegate the faculty responsibilities to someone else while you're doing the DDS. The way it works is you are sort of traveling on two horses at the same time. One, on your academic career, and two, you are fulfilling these requirements to own your DDS.
Thank you, sir. There is a question by Dr. Rajpriya. Can I kindly know the exams to be cleared to enroll in a residency program? Can we have any of the speakers take this, please?
Sure, probably I could take that question. So we have to look at each individual orthodontic residency program to look at their specific requirements. But in general, right, you would the program directors would want you to pass the integrated national board examination And if you're able to take the GRE and get a good score in it, that will be great. And then as a foreign trained student, right, you also have to take the TOEFL exam. So that's going to be mandatory. Now again, like some programs make these tests mandatory and some programs do not make it mandatory. For example, at UIC, we do not require any exams per se, excepting the TOEFL because of the international student requirement. But you're encouraged to take it. So if you take those exams, and then if you do well, then definitely you hold an edge over other applicants. So these are the minimum exams that you have to take up. Okay, Sumit, anything at Connecticut or Nebraska that you would want to share?
So, like I would say, Dr. Allareddy is, like, except another exam which some institutes require is ADET. Especially NYU requires ADET since INDB is pass-fail. So they just want something, so they will require ADET. And there are some other institutes which are requiring ADET. But like in UConn, we just require, or in Nebraska, we just require joint national board, and GRE is optional.
I would like to add one more comment to that. When you guys are thinking about specialty training, you would also have to think about whether you would be the ideal candidate for that particular program. So what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. There are certain programs will not allow you to have a faculty learning permit. For example, in Iowa, where I am, you can get a faculty permit or a resident permit so that you can go through the residency training. And it is the same in UIC and Harvard. But there are programs in the country, even to be a resident, you might need a DDS or a full dental license. So if you are applying to that program, and when the program director reviews your application, and if they realize that you won't be eligible to get the dental license to practice as a resident in that state, then probably you might not get a call for an interview. So it's important that you do that homework ahead of time, which program you can actually get which state you can get a learning permit and still go through the residency program.
So just as Dr. Shankar said, like a couple of 2 pointers, basically, most of the hospital-based programs, you cannot apply. Just as Dr. Shankar said, it's almost mandatory to get a DMD or a DDS, but like except Mayo, where you can apply, but most of the hospital-based programs, you cannot. And then there are certain states, as Dr. Shankar said, like which does not give you, which does not provide you with license to practice even as a resident. So those states you cannot do that too.
So just to throw in this mix about admission requirements to get into residency program, right? It is not just the class grades or the GPA or the scores in the standardized exams that might. It's actually a mix of factors. For example, at UIC, we look at like 18 different components, and sometimes we also give you scenarios on handling certain clinical situations or personal situations that how you would handle. So there are those questions are planted too. It's a mix of factors that we take into consideration, not just the standardized score. So it is the entire application package that matters. How well your statement is, why you want to do orthodontics. That's a very critical element actually. So I look at every single statement to see why you want to do orthodontics, and then like does it actually is it very clear? Is it very well articulated? Your long-term vision, future goals, that has to be very clearly articulated. And of course, your letters of recommendations also matter quite a bit. So it's a mix of like 18 different things that we see at least UIC. All these factors play a role in you getting an interview and subsequently getting matched into the program.
Okay. Can we have Dr. Namrata? You can raise your question.
Thank you. Good evening, respected panelists. I am a consultant orthodontist working here in India. And my query is, if you are planning to move to the US, I have currently, say, about 4 years of experience. If you're currently planning to move to the US and you are interested in both research as well as clinical practice, what, according to you, is the best suggestion to move ahead, to not waste time once we get to the US and yet have a good hold on going about the practice there after clearing the board exams, that is?
Okay, so that's, I mean, that's a question that a lot of foreign trained orthodontists or dentists have, how to practice in the US. So there are several pathways, right? So after you come to the US, you can enroll in a residency program and then get board certified. And then there are certain states which allow you to take the licensure exam to get a full license in the US if you finish the board accredited residency program. For example, in Chicago, we allow the state of Illinois allows, at least for the time being, those that have completed a board accredited residency program to appear for the license exam and get a full license. The other option is to do like an advanced standing 2-year or 3-year DDS PMD program and get a license and practice in the US. But the other option that most of us have actually taken is to do the residency program in the US and then be in an academic setting. And in an academic setting, obviously, you can practice dentistry within the confines of the intramural practice. And of course, you can teach and have like a full-time academic career. Now, the question is, like, how do you get into the residency program? Like, as we discussed earlier, there are a set of metrics that we look at and a set of exams that you have to take. And for you to get a head start, probably I would suggest, as soon as you come in, sort of volunteer to work in some lab, get an idea about how the research enterprise actually works, and actually see if that is something that you would really want to do, and then go from there, so that you get your hand or at least a foot inside the door, like to just get into the academic world. So that's what I would do. That's what Maysaa did very successfully. She came from Syria, then worked in an orthodontic lab at UIC, made a very positive impression, and she got into the residency program. But you have to keep in mind that just because you enter into an orthodontic lab or you work with somebody, that doesn't mean that it's a guaranteed admission. No, that's not how it actually works. I said, do you want to add something to what I said? Because you had actually taken that pathway where you finished your residency in Syria and then came to US.
Yeah, I would say regarding not wasting time, as you said, I would really advise you to start searching program by program, or at least the state you think you might go to, and search the universities there, search the programs, and see what's going on. My husband is in the medical field, and I definitely see dentistry is totally different from medical field. In medical field, they really don't. It's kind of like the same all across the state. From all these states, they require the same sequence for license, the same steps. Dentistry, you really need to search it state by state, and even within the state in regard of license. And for program admission, you have to change to look program by program. So that needs a lot of time and a lot of reading. So I really suggest you to start now. It's difficult. It really relies on the state and on the program itself. The second thing regarding how to get to practice orthodontic here, as Dr. already said, my background, I came right away to residency, which is great, but it's more challenging. You have to really stand out. You have to, because you're competing with the US dentals, not with the foreigners, you know, different from the advanced standing application. So you have to prove yourself. It takes some extra time maybe to do extra things. So you can do residency, go right away to the residency, but it might need you some extra time because, as I told you, it's more competitive. You can go to advanced standing, and there is something else. It's called GPR residency. Some states you need they give you the license, DDS license, if you're doing this GPR. If you have done the GPR residency I think 2 years of GPR residency. But again, you have to know if you're doing the residency path right away or the GPR path. Your options very limited in regard of license. Not all the states give you the license. You have to search it. Like I know some states give license for people who has done GPR, but they don't give license to people who has done residency. Okay, so it's totally different, and it keeps changing year by year. That's the most challenging one. While if you go to the advanced standing program, you guarantee that you will be accepted. Your license, you have more option. You will be accepted. You will get your license across in any state here in US. So that's what I would say. Yeah. Start reading now. Check every state you're planning to go and each program in this state you're planning to go. That would save you a lot of time.
Thank you, Dr. Maysaa. We have another question from Dr. Sri Hari Lakshmi. Can we have you asking your question, please?
Sure.
Dr. Sri Hari, please go ahead. What about Dr. Surabhi? Can I have Dr. Surabhi's question? Or Dr. Swati?
Dr. Sharanya, you have to make them as presenter.
Hello.
Oh, yes, please go ahead.
Hello, good evening. Sorry for the interruption. Actually, my mic didn't work in the middle. I'm Sri Hari Lakshmi. I'm actually a third year BDS student here in India. I have a few questions actually, and first is, well, I want to do DDS, but I don't know when, like after my BDS gets over, or is it the best time also to finish my MDS here in India and then proceed for a DDS course in the US?
So I think that's very subjective. If I were you, if my goal was to practice in the US, right, I would actually come to the US, do the advanced standing DDS or DMD, or get my license, and then apply for residency programs in the US, and then go from there. Because I don't see the advantage that an MDS would actually add if your goal is to pursue the advanced standing DDS program in the US. So if I were you, probably I would, after you finish your BDS, come to US, do your DDS.
Can I add a quick comment to that? With regards to the advanced standing DDS, it's becoming increasingly popular, right? As far as the number of application goes, you know, in some schools get for 10 spots like over 1,000 applications to pursue advanced standing DDS. So now most of the schools face with the challenge of how do you select these candidates? And the trend that I've seen in students that I have mentored who have been very successful in getting into advanced standing DDS are people who have pursued some type of master's degree in the US to demonstrate their academic acumen. You know, someone had gone through an MPH program, had maintained a very good GPA, had published papers, worked with the professor, was able to get a good recommendation letter, have completed integrated Dell boards exam. So those are the factors will make you a successful applicant. So when you're thinking about advanced standing DDS and coming to the US, you also have to think about what are the things that you need to do to get there.
Thank you so much. Dr. Surabhi, can you please present your question?
Hello, good evening, panel. It was a wonderful talk. And I had a similar question. Is it necessary to do DDS before doing advanced standing programs, DMD?
So the advanced standing DDS or DMD that we are referring to are the same programs. So if you do like a 2 or 3 year program, right? That's called as an advanced standing program. This is specifically for foreign trained students who have already completed BDS in India.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Swati Cage, can you please ask your question? Dr. Swati?
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, so thank you for such an excellent presentation. My question was like, I'm actually a periodontist and I did my implant fellowship at UConn, but I had seen multiple of times over there because I was doing my research as well. But my question is actually like, I came back to India after that and I now want to apply for my residency. Because of this current visa restrictions, like even if you're applying, you have to attend an interview. How do we do that? Because currently most of the schools are not doing virtual interviews. And with the current visa restrictions, it becomes very difficult to travel all the way and even stay there for a couple of months, like especially if you are like practicing here back in India. So how do we manage that and how do we choose a mentor actually?
Yeah, so we had that issue in the current admission cycle at UIC, but for the foreign trained or the foreign stationed folks that were shortlisted for interview, right? We actually made an exception and did a Zoom interview. So we understand that getting a visitor's visa now, there is such a long waiting time, like 6 months to 1 year or even 2 years. So it's not going to be possible to come actually for the interview in person. But in such situations, we were able to accommodate for a Zoom interview. That's what we have actually done at UIC. Sumit, anything at Connecticut or Nebraska?
So, UIC is a little bit different, but most of the schools I can tell you are stopping the Zoom interview. Swati, you are right. And the only thing I can say, if you had a B1 or B2 visa, you can use a Dropbox facility and you will get a visa. You don't have to go for interview. So if you already had a US visa, you can use a Dropbox facility. But yes, you are right. Like for any person, since you have been in UConn, for any new person, it's tough. And I don't know, in UConn, we don't do Zoom interview. You can request individually to the program director, and some program directors might agree based on the situations. Like I would say like most of us are very conscientious, but there are certain rules. We get it from the school, and then we have to follow that rules. And like, as a chair, would I like to do Zoom? Yes, like I would like to help you. But then if I get a rule, if I get certain requirements from my academic dean that none of the department can do Zoom, then I have to just decline. So, but most of the people will try to help you. Like that's what I've seen. Most of the people will try to help you in some or the other manner.
I think there is no harm in asking, and if they don't, they don't. But at least at UIC, we have been very fortunate to be able to actually help potential applicants. And there has been no pushback from my higher ups for not wanting to do Zoom interview. So Shankar, your take on that? You're going to be the chair at Tufts. So how would you?
So yeah, that's a good question, Swati. Both of my colleagues have answered that. The key here is, especially at least for orthodontic, you said you are a periodontist, so I don't know how the perio residency works, but for orthodontics, there are many programs or in match. So you come for an interview, you submit a rank order list, and one thing that program and the dental schools are very cognizant of is they don't want to be in a situation where if a candidate cannot successfully get a student visa into the program, that thought process that most dental schools will think about. So I think the best thing to do here is you contact the program director, explain your situation, what's going on, and they can consult with the academic dean and see whether they can make an exception for you. Like for example, in Iowa, there was a year where all the interviews were Zoom interviews, and now that we have gotten over the hump of pandemic, we require most of the interviews to be in person. So if there are visa restrictions to attend interview, then at least in Iowa, I don't think Zoom interviews are entertained. You know, here the key is when you are interviewing candidates, you want to make sure that everybody is interviewed the same way. So if the experience is different for one person as in person, the other person as a Zoom, it throws a challenge for the admissions committee. How do you evaluate the candidates? Because when you are in person, you get a certain vibe about you can articulate your passion to pursue residency program. When you are in Zoom, you know, it adds a layer of complexity to that. Nevertheless, contact the program director, ask them if they could make an exception, and I think that's the best way to go.
I have a continuing question in that, as you mentioned, I did face this cycle. Actually, I missed some of the things.
Dr. Swati, your connection seems to be quite weak. We're not able to understand you clearly. We have another and the final question from Dr. Yusuf, who is an alumni. Dr. Yusuf, you can go on.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, I'm an orthodontist practicing right now in Saudi Arabia. And I had a question. Is it mandatory to do fellowship in the dental schools over there in order to get a better chance of getting admission into ortho residencies? Or there are some preceptorships as well, like I think UCSF gives 3-month preceptorship in orthodontics as well. So will that also be beneficial, or only fellowship would be the better choice?
So I will take this question and then other colleagues can. So, you know, like what you are trying to establish is your relationship. And you are trying, when you do a fellowship of a year, you're trying to show us that you can work. We know that you are an accomplished orthodontist, but you can work in a large team and you can publish. So that's how you establish your relationship. And once you establish your relationship, you get some publications if you are interested in that kind of a program. But what happens is, you know, like even in UConn, when you join the fellowship or other programs too, you know, like you join in July and the match results would be out in December. So we are very quick to judge your, you know, like we will judge your acumen, or we will judge, you know, like your interpersonal relationship, or, you know, like your, how do you talk with other people? You know, like in 3 to 4 months, we'll make our decision. And, you know, like I would say by December, you'll come to know whether you were matched or not. Is it essential? No, it is not essential. As Dr. Allareddy said, you know, like we have already taken candidates directly from, you know, like outside the country. But, you know, like it is good to know people so that, you know, like people can speak very positively about you in that program. And when the admission committee meets, you know, like 7-8 people meet, if there is somebody backing you based on your credentials or based on, you know, like your interpersonal relationship or the research you did in last 3 to 4 months, that changes a lot.
Yeah, so again, like as Dr. Yadav said, it's not an absolute essential, and I certainly don't want you to have this narrative that if you do a fellowship, you're going to get an interview or you're going to get matched into the program. That doesn't work that way. So this is just an opportunity for you to get a foothold into the system, and then it's you, how you perform in the program and what kind of impression that you make. But just getting into a fellowship does not guarantee you anything. So do not get into the mindset of joining the fellowship, hoping that that's a shortcut for getting into the residency program.
So one quick comment following up Dr. Yadav and Dr. Allareddy about the fellowship. See, most universities will have an equitable admissions process, right? Just because you go through a fellowship, they cannot guarantee you a spot. So the fellowship is an opportunity for you to excel and provide quantifiable metrics. So in the application process, there are qualitative items and quantitative metrics. The quantitative metrics are how well have you performed in your dental school? Do you have publications? Have you presented your work in scientific meetings? The qualitative side of things are what is your vision and why do you want to become an orthodontist in the US? Can you work with the team, as Dr. Yadav mentioned? What is your attitude towards patient care? So when you have an experience in a different part of the world, it is very hard for the admissions committee to gauge that. When you become a fellow, it gives you an opportunity to work with a professor to publish. It gives you an opportunity to demonstrate your work ethics, your ability to work in team. So these are the things that are going to make you successful. So I don't want you to, as Dr. Allareddy said, get the impression that it's more like a checkbox. You know, you check the box, they'll call you for an interview. So it's a lot more holistic than that.
I cannot, like there is Dr. Shankar put it in such a nice word, you know, like most of the programs I can tell you, you know, like they are not looking for superstars. They are looking for person who can, you know, like is easy to work with and has very strong ethics. That's what I can assure you, like UConn is looking, and I'm sure, you know, like Dr. Allareddy and other programs are looking for the same thing, you know, like because it's very competitive and we want, you know, like person to have a very strong work ethics, very, very strong and easy to work with. All the residents like those kinds of professionals.
Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Yadav. That's absolutely true.
Thank you. I think all the questions have been answered. I would like to request Dr. Silju Matthew, sir, to please give a few concluding remarks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharanya. First of all, let me thank each one of those speakers for the way you've experienced, when you expressed your experience and the way you shared your experience and how you have made it big in US. I would like to thank Dr. Allareddy, Dr. Sumit Yadav, Dr. Shankar, Dr. Maysaa, and Dr. Min. I think it was such a personalized narrative that, you know, everybody could relate to it. And these are the problems that normally people face, and the emotional component to it, and the kind of struggle and the hardship that people go through. That was very beautifully, you know, narrated, and I really appreciate you all for taking the time out to share your experience and thoughts. And I'm sure the entire youngsters who have been listening would have benefited and at least got some insight as to how to approach. I mean, there's so much of confusion, and I think it's a dream of all the youngsters to be there in the US and to pursue their studies or practice, but they are not aware of the kind of obstacles and challenges that they would face. And I think you have cleared it all very eloquently, in a very, very simplified way, and that would give them an idea as to how to proceed forward. So I think once again, I'd like to thank each one of you. And also I would like to thank our leadership, Professor Raina and Professor Karbanda sir, who is still there with us, I think. And also the delegates who have been from across the country and few from overseas also. And I'm sure they would have benefited, they would have enriched themselves, and they would have some clarity as to how to move forward and apply for their dream profession or practice or research. Thank you so much. Really, this interaction has been really nice. And I must say that, in this early morning weather, you could take time to be with us and share your thoughts. That's amazing. And thank you so much, each one of you. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew. Absolute honor and pleasure for us to share our stories.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Can I request Dr. Karbanda sir to please say a few words in the end?
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are all deeply indebted to the speakers who have spared their valuable time to share their thoughts and experiences. And each of your experiences were so personal and insightful. I'm sure it has opened the minds of all our young students, undergraduates and postgraduates alike. And it has given them ideas on how to pursue things, whether it be research, PhD, fellowships, etc. So your experiences have been so unique, and It has made, I think, all the students think of options that they never knew existed before. So we are really indebted to you all. I also would like to thank the participants who have joined this webinar so late in the night and who are so eagerly have waited to present all their questions. I'd like to thank our Dean, Dr. Silju Matthew sir, and the entire staff of the Ortho Department and the head of the department, Dr. Prashant sir, for all their help and support in organizing this webinar. And also our postgraduate students who were indispensable in the organizing of this event. I'd also like to thank Mr. Anthony for his technical support all the time. And let me just conclude by saying thank you one and all. And we hope that this webinar has been useful and insightful to all the delegates. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Sharanya, for so gracefully carrying this program forward. Thank you.
So,
yeah, I second that. Thank you, Dr. Sharanya.
Thank you so much, everyone. Let's